We only learned the full story much later. Don and Jake were the first to go up with him. Everything was fine. The takeoff and landing went smoothly. Then it was Randy and Rachel's turn. He buzzed the tour bus 2 or 3 times before the wing clipped the roof a few inches from where me and Sharon were sleeping. When the wing hit the buzz, Randy and Rachel were thrown through the windscreen, or so I was told. Then the plane, minus its wing, smashed into the trees behind, fell into the garage, and exploded. If I'd been awake, I would have been on that fucking plane, no question. Knowing me, I'd have been on the wing, pissed, doing handstands and backflips. But it makes no sense to me that Randy went up. He hated flying. Rachel had a weak heart, so she would hardly have wanted to do a loop-the-fucking-loop. We checked into some shithole called the Hilco Inn in Leesburg and tried to hide from the press while the police did their thing. You know what? I think this is a sign that I ain't supposed to do this anymore, I said to Sharon. By then I was having a total physical and mental breakdown. The doctor had to come over and shoot me up with sedatives. Sharon wasn't doing much better. The one thing that gave us some comfort was a message from AC/DC saying, "If there's anything we can do, let us know." I'll always be grateful to them for it. The morning after the crash, I called my sister Jean, who told me that my mother had been on a bus when she'd seen a newspaper stand with the headline, "Ozzy Osbourne, air crash death." My poor old mum had gone crazy. Then we had to do 2 funerals in 1 week, and it was fucking heavy duty on all of us. Randy's funeral was held at the First Lutheran Church in Burbank. I was one of the pallbearers. I felt so bad. Randy was one of the greatest guys who'd ever been in my life. Rachel's funeral was at a black gospel church somewhere in South LA. It's a joyous experience, an African-American funeral. The following week I did the David Letterman show. It was surreal, man. Dave was very sympathetic, but I was in no mood for the bat story. All I can say is that I lost 2 of the greatest people in my life, I said, trying not to choke up. But it ain't going to stop me because I'm about rock and roll is for the people, and I love people, and you can't kill rock and roll.
Would like me to continue, so would Rachel. And I'm not going to stop because you can't kill rock and roll.
This is your seamstress and also your guitar player. So when will the tour be renewed?
If it sounds a bit over the top, it's because I was as pissed as a fart. In private, I wasn't so sure that you couldn't kill rock and roll. It's not meant to be, I kept telling Sharon. Let's call it a day. But she wasn't having any of it. This is what you're meant to do, Ozzy. Nothing's going to stop us. If Sharon hadn't given me that speech a few times, I'd never have gone on a stage again. A few weeks after Randy died, I asked Sharon to marry me. If there's one good thing that could come out of all the shit we've been through on this tour, I told her, it would be making you my wife. She said yes. So I put a ring on her finger and we set a date. Then the booze wore off and I changed my mind. After everything that had gone down with Thelma, I was terrified of going through it all again. But then I got over the fear. I was in love with Sharon. So a few weeks later, I proposed again. "Will you marry me?" I asked her. "Fuck off." I proposed to her 17 times in the end. We got married in Hawaii, on the way to a gig in Japan. It was a small ceremony on the island of Maui. Don Arden showed up, but only because he wanted Sharon to sign some paperwork. My mum and my sister Jean came too. Tommy was my best man. On my wedding night, I didn't even make it back to the room to spend the night with my new wife. At 5 in the morning, the hotel manager had to call her room and say, "Will you please come and get your husband? He's asleep in the corridor and blocking the maids." It wasn't long after that my new father-in-law stopped calling me Ozzy. He took to calling me Vegetable instead, as in, fuck off vegetable, or die vegetable, or get out of my fucking house right now vegetable. Mind you, it was nothing compared with how he'd talked to Sharon. Then the next thing you knew, they were friends again. That's how Sharon was raised, and why she's so extreme. In the end, Sharon found out that Don was having an affair with a girl younger than she was. We left Jet Records, which made Don go apeshit, and we had to pay him $1.5 million to buy out our contract and stop him bankrupting us with lawsuits. Eventually they stopped talking to each other altogether, and the silence continued for almost 20 years. If any good came out of that situation, it was that we borrowed as much dough as we could to buy out all of my contracts, so we weren't controlled by anyone.